This is Hiro Nishikawa. His grandparents immigrated to the United States at the turn of the century. Their immigration was illegal according to the Immigration Act of 1970, which prohibited the legalization of anyone who was not white.
My grandparents came from Japan in the end of the 19th century, at a time in which they could not become American citizens because of the law of the 1790 Act of Congress, which prevented that. So they were farm workers, and over time they got frustrated. After my parents were born, they took them as kids back to Japan, separately, of course. And in time, my grandparents passed away, and I never knew them. My father and mother were born in California at different times, near Watsonville, California, and they exercised their birthright by coming back to the States since they were removed from the States as children. So they were dual citizens up until that point. Anyway, not long after my parents came back to the States and got married in San Francisco, we were caught up in World War II. I was about 3 years old at the time, had two other little brothers, and we went to a camp, incarceration, in a concentration camp at Poston, Arizona, and for about 3 years. So I got to finish my first grade in camp. I had a third brother born in camp who has the unusual privilege of not having a physical birthplace anymore, except on a piece of paper, because the camp dissolved and fell and disappeared. So then we returned to California after the war, and I eventually went to college. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I went to Berkeley, and I majored in chemistry and biochemistry. Again, I had no role models, except that a high school teacher who was an encouraging chemistry teacher said, you might want to give this a shot. So, but I had no other family examples to follow. But I did that, and I eventually went to graduate school. But towards the end of that, about 10 years ago, I got reconnected with my community in the sense of history, and especially during the World War II experience. And I've been a history buff anyway all this time. And so I did a lot of digging and reading, and found out from parents anecdotal stories about their experience in camp. I mean, I was a little kid. I could remember the heat, sandstorms, rattlesnakes, tarantulas, and things like that as kids would run across them under the house or under the barracks and things like that. But in terms of the big picture of the incarceration, my parents, of course, suffered a lot more, and they wouldn't talk about it for a long time. It wasn't until I was past graduate school that in family visits, my mother began to talk about it. Why I'm interested in the immigration thing is because of the racism that my parents and my family encountered during World War II. We were treated worse than immigrants, actually, by the government. And so I don't want to see this happening again, and although we have a short memory in the collective American body, unfortunately. And so I'm committed to working with church groups, civil rights groups, in pursuing fair immigration laws that apply to everybody, and to give everybody a chance, a reasonable and fair chance.